Well, at the very least, I don't think I've ever seen anyone do this in a heist film. So unique. You play as an expert team of thieves, who were rather predictably betrayed by one of their fellow crew members. And now you're on a quest for revenge and stuff. You may be able to tell that I'm being rather dismissive here, as the game mimics things like the Oceans franchise. For instance, they use arcane and colorful names for criminal stratagems.
Murray's planning a Vincent bodega. He's gonna break into the museum and swap the rock for a replica.
And it has the same kind of high-energy music that you would find in that type of heist film. There aren't many tracks, but instead I think they're quite long. And while it is good music that's fairly successful in evoking that feeling, the game's attempts at cool are kind of undercut by, for instance, lackluster voice acting. Forced attempted comic squabbling.
Okay, Keymaster, what do you say we bury the hatchet? It worked after Pismo Beach, right? Or remember in '69 how we used that football game as a diversion? That was...
Keep your stories about the good old days to yourself.
You sure you can fit in there, Bubble Butt?
You just make sure you don't trip over that big mouth of yours, Ice Queen.
And it has visually archetypical characterization, without particularly good writing. And, why did they have to spell Crookz with a Z? But it is possible to get into it, because there's one element of the storytelling presentation that pulls the whole slick thing off. Proper heist briefings. Here it goes mostly black and white like security camera footage, and the plan is relayed while smooth camera movements display the objectives. Here it actually comes together. If for no other reason than it is a nice neat distraction, and the 70s styling work a treat in the interface. Surprisingly so actually. Quite colorful and flashy for a stealth game. The graphics are decent, and most of the levels are packed to create labyrinths of lasers and lush, lavish luxury. But the levels are usually so intricate, with so much to focus on, that I rarely noticed the decor. The game represents what it's supposed to represent quite well, and those elements become obstructions at most when you focus on the gameplay. You kind of filter out most of what you can't interact with. The gameplay is good, but the AI aren't particularly smart, and the gameplay has very few dynamic elements. So usually it plays more like a puzzle than stealth. Really intricate levels that at times can be rather overwhelming, and you work through them, stealing as much loot as possible, gaining as little heat as possible, to get the highest possible score. So many steps. Methodical progression. But the more you play, you will realize there's a whole lot less planning than you would think. Step by step, instead of following steps. But even that approach can be a bit of a head-scratcher. A set of small, tricky puzzles, instead of one continuous master plan. Although that kind of wastes the wait-and-go mechanic of the game in my opinion. Especially since you can pause at the drop of a hat and order characters as necessary. I suppose you can force yourself into attempting the entire level in one smooth planning phase. Have your team be a well-oiled machine. Just make your plan at the start of the level and say go. Watching your own objective brilliance unfold before you. But the game doesn't require it. The game doesn't even convert your points into a ranking. So there's very little incentive to complete the level silently, with all the possible loot in a step-by-step fashion. Okay, sure, that means you get awarded more money that can get spent on gadgets for levels, but a lot of levels have enough of them lying around to put in a good attempt. Oh goody, exactly what I need in the middle of nowhere. And for some reason the guards didn't confiscate it. Were the good old days, people, right? Were the 70s just safer? Back in my day, we could just leave our highly advanced spy technology in the open. The gameplay is fun. Different crew members have different specialties. Squeezing through vents, picking locks without a gadget, being strong, electronics expertise, 70s sci-fi TV, thief robot, so your team may not be a well-oiled machine, but you can recruit one. All the traditional roles are here, obviously, and as the levels progress, they unlock new skills, making some routes more accessible. And yes, a lot of times there are multiple ways to go about your heisting. If you see a route from the start to your end objective, you can take it. And there, teamwork comes into play like a proper crew. Sometimes it's genuinely impressive. It just eventually gets rather repetitive, trying to overcome these same similar obstacles on different levels, with tighter and tighter security to contend with, and thus more obstacles. More and more focus, longer and longer levels. It gets harder, but there's no increase in incentive as time goes on. Less stimulation. Kind of sloggy after a while. A tinge of story curiosity washed over me, as I feel the story kind of improved nearing where I stopped, but eventually I did give up playing. I believe I completed 2 out of 3 of the chapters. It took me 18 hours to do that, with all of the loot, I believe, as well as being mostly silent. I believe there are like 6 levels left, as well as more challenging challenge mode levels, based on completed levels but harder. Those are available to you as well, if you think you would be able to play that long. The game is cheap on Steam though, 115 Rand full price, 46 Rand on sale. That's 2 Rand 56 per hour of gameplay, which is fairly good. But to download it isn't the easiest, as it takes up 3.47 gigabytes on the hard drive. Not the biggest download, but kind of an ask. But it does work on the Warhorse, surprisingly. But it lags a whole lot. But since you play in a pause, plan, play arrangement, kind of watching some things unfold at times, this is probably one of the better games to play under laggy conditions. But where I tested it initially, it was a fairly basic setup, not that hard on the processor, and it was still laggy. So maybe there are even worse performing areas on the Warhorse. So here are the system requirements. I did retest it recently though, and set it to the lowest resolution and lower settings. And that does improve things noticeably, from lag to at most frame rate drop. So decide if it's worth risking, but maybe the more intricate levels will still be a problem. Plus, the visual performance will be lower. You make the call. And stereotypically it is kid-friendly, I can't remember anything objectionable. Maybe some very mild innuendo. But other than that, at most people get knocked unconscious. The game has good visuals, very large intricate levels. Kind of a little bit awe-inspiring. And that intricacy results in another pro. It makes the levels trickier and more puzzly, especially later on. Also, it has some very catchy, good heist music. 70s theme, you can just imagine the montage, with side-to-side paneling showing the different crew members completing their tasks, simultaneously. Fits great if there aren't many tracks, but they're long. On the maybe side, the gameplay is more puzzle than stealth really. It is good gameplay though, the AI are just a bit undynamic. But maybe I'm being harsh, a lot of stealth games have this issue to one degree or another. And the game doesn't have an amazing story, but it's presented very well during the briefing segments. If the voice acting is a bit lackluster. On the con side, and once again perhaps a bit harsh, the game tries to be cool but drops the ball consistently. And the gameplay can get a bit repetitive and sloggy. Long levels requiring a lot of focus and not offering that much incentive for repeatedly doing the fairly similar task across different levels. Also, some of the features in my opinion are underutilized, and arguably this game isn't living up to its potential. I mean, the heat doesn't hamper you that much. I don't think it sends out the message to the other guards to be more alert, and there's very little need for the stop and go mechanics, theoretically incentivizing coordinated planning, making for more epic heists. I know this game can come across quite con heavy, but while this game has you, it has you. There are reasons to like it. If for no other reason, then heist games are kind of rare. So ultimately I do recommend it. You probably won't finish it, but I guess you will create a few nice memories at the very least. Come on, play it, and get severely underpaid for some dangerous heist work. Although this does take place in the 70s, maybe I'm not accounting for inflation properly. Although it still feels like shortchanging.
Choip, choip, choip. Choip, choip, choip.